Welcome, everyone. It's Miss Gisa, and today we have a very special visitor. We have Shweta Aggarwal, an author, a mom, a dancer, and today she is going to talk about some of her stories. She is the author of the Dev and Ollie series of books, which you can listen to parts of the story here on our YouTube channel. And I will also link below in the text where you can find all of her books. Welcome, Shweta.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isa.
We're
It's
so
so wonderful to connect with you and talk to you today
we're
and to all your listeners.
We're so excited to have you. We love having authors on to talk about their experience and their stories. As you know, we're a big lover of books, and
Mhm.
so I just wanted to start out by asking you what you have traveled around the world. You've lived in several different countries. What has inspired you to write and become an author?
Um, so the journey has been a complicated one, should I say? Because what inspired me are basically two things. Firstly, the travel element of it all, and hence the book series is based around festivals and children traveling to festivals with the characters in the book and learning about different cultures. At the moment, I appreciate that it's only Indian festivals, but the intention is to expand and take readers to international festivals around the world.
Wonderful.
Um, so that definitely comes from my own personal journey as such, having been born in India, raised in Japan, and living in the UK, and traveled extensively. So I thought, actually, the world is becoming quite a dark and sad place, and our children could do with learning about different cultures. And the one way and the best way that I thought that they can learn about different cultures is through festivals. That hence the subject of the series, because I feel like festivals are a window, and it's the best window into a culture. You learn everything through a festival. You learn about people's food, about their art, about their dressing, about what they eat, and why they're celebrating that festival.
Yes.
And it's like a quick little synopsis, basically, of their entire culture. So that's what inspired me to write the Dev and Ollie series with the subject of festivals. And then apart from that, the other inspiration really came from lack of representation and my children coming home with books, whether they were bringing it from the library or their school reading assignments, and just not seeing Asian characters in those books.
Yeah.
And that was quite a kind of profound moment for me when I remember vividly when my daughter, she had a writing assignment, and she started writing and she picked names like Zara and Evelyn and Amanda. And I just stopped her and I asked her, well, why don't you pick an Asian name? And she said, Mummy, it doesn't sound right. And
Oh,
I realized at that moment the reason why it doesn't sound right to her is because she doesn't see those names in books.
yeah.
And I think that moment is when the penny dropped for me as such. And, it was literally a defining moment where I realized something has to be done about this. And one thing, leading to another, I kind of amalgamated my two purposes and the festival theme and the lack of representation in children's books, and then put the two together. And then we got Dev and Ollie traveling the world.
Yes, which I just love. And I have learned about festivals that I had never heard of from your stories. So I'm so appreciative to have your books out there for us to
Thank
enjoy and to learn from. Yeah. I have a picture here of your son.
you.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the character of Dev?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you start thinking about characters, you don't actually have to look very far. And I've learned that through Dev and Ollie. Um, more than anything else, even when you're reading other people's novels, their characters are inspired by real people around them.
Mhm.
And so Dev was essentially inspired by my son. And my son was around 6 years old when I started writing the series. And, he being a typical boy, he was a bit cheeky and a little bit clumsy and wanted to learn about things, but then his attention span wasn't very, very long. So all of these little things that I kind of put together, I just thought, okay, this is perfect. I've got a character right here in front of me that wants to learn and is curious, but at the same time, there's, always getting into trouble with like something or the other happening. Um, and then the final kind of icing on the cake as such was, or the final piece in the puzzle really, was his look. So when the illustrator asked me, okay, well, I've drawn Dev, and actually, to be honest, I hadn't given him a picture of my son. I just described this child, this character in my
Wow.
mind, and he drew the character. And I looked at the character and I thought, this is my son. And
Amazing.
the number of times I've had friends tell me that, like, well, Dev is really your son, isn't he? And that's when it kind of, occurred to me that actually, yes, he is. But yeah, the final piece in the puzzle was what pajamas should he wear? And I remember taking a picture of his pajamas with the navy blue kind of base as such,
Yes.
and then the little light blue stars in the pajamas. And I just sent that off to my illustrator. And I said, here you go. This is perfect. Nighttime adventures, navy blue and stars. I mean, you can't come up with anything better
Love
than
it.
that.
That's so great. So great. So after you write a story, you didn't do your own illustrations. You found an illustrator to draw the pictures.
Yeah.
How did you find your illustrator?
So that actually was a surprisingly easy task, which I wasn't expecting to be that easy. I went onto this website called
Okay.
freelancer.com.
Okay.
Yeah. And I, just described the characters and the series that I had in mind. And I had 50, 100, 200 illustrators messaging back immediately with
Wow.
their suggestions, their quotes. Some of them were happy to draw sample images, some weren't. And out of the 50, out of the 200 something, I narrowed down to 50. Out of the 50, about 5 or 6 were happy to do sample illustrations, one
Okay.
of them being Somnath Chatterjee. And this moment, literally the moment that he sent his sample illustration, I just knew that that was it. That's exactly what I had in my mind.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, with technology these days,
Yeah.
that's great to be able to network that way.
Mm.
Did you always know that you wanted to be an author or a writer?
Um, no, not at all, actually. It's something that just happened, I think, accidentally, and almost where, life dictates where you're going and what you're going to do.
Right.
Before I started writing Dev and Ollie, I was actually a dance choreographer, and I had my own dance company, and I ran it for about 10 years. And we were very, very fortunate to, have done really well. We were the first Bollywood dance company to have featured in the Britain's Got Talent, and we actually got to the semi-finals. And so, God was very kind with Freebie and everything that Freebie represented, and where I managed to take it from day one to the 10 years. Um, but as my kids were starting to grow up, I realized that actually, in a funny way, when they were babies, is when I could run the dance company. But when they started to go to school, I realized that if I didn't see them during the day, and then mentally I wasn't present in the evening because my dance company ran very antisocial working hours and rehearsals were in the evening, etc.,
Right.
that I basically wouldn't see them at all. I didn't see them in the day and I didn't see them in the evening. So I realized that I can't keep up with that, and it's just not feasible anymore, and I have to wrap up. So I did. I graciously kind of retired from dancing. And then I also noticed kids bringing books home, and one thing leading to another. It just something that transpired, really, to be honest. It kind of took its own, course. And I started researching how to write children's books. And then I went on to 2 writing courses.
Okay.
And a year later, I launched Kite Crazy as the first title.
great. Oh my goodness. And then after Kite Crazy, was the next one the book about the holy holiday?
That's the one, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Carnival, yeah. Mhm.
I'll put all of these titles in the text below, so any children or parents who want to purchase them can find them. Um, so, how long does it take on average to write one book?
Um, that is a difficult question, to be honest, because I think everybody has their own pace,
Mhm.
and sometimes the characters just come to you. If we're talking about picture books,
Yes.
sometimes the characters just come to you immediately. And again, I just kind of looked back at my life, and Ollie, for example, was inspired by a real owl that I happened to uh, have an experience with in a bird park in Japan, where I grew up.
Wow.
I have an image of this owl, this big owl sitting on my arm. And you know, when they can obviously turn their head like 180 degrees or even 360, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just looked at me. And when it turned and I looked back at the owl and I saw these huge, enormous eyes. Um, and like it sounds so cheesy, right? And so kind of corny. But I swear I saw like, okay, this is where people say this, owls have a lot of wisdom, the old wise owl.
Yes.
Um, so I thought this has got to be the kind of, the buddy that Dev travels around with, because Ollie, his character is such in the book that he's kind of like this living encyclopedia. He has the answers to everything, but yet he lets Dev take charge of the adventure.
Yes. Yes. It's such a fun relationship between the two. So, do you have a favorite place where you like to sit and do your writing? Or do you write in many places?
Um, I tend to sit right here in my study.
Okay.
Sometimes I actually quite enjoy taking my cup of coffee and going to a park bench and just jotting down notes there. But one thing that I do religiously when I have some ideas that are, kind of dancing literally in my head, and I need to collate them all, I go for a walk. And I go for like an hour-long walk, and I put my headphones on with really loud music, but somehow that's just white noise to my brain. And I just, I'm walking and I'm thinking. And when I come back for about 2 hours, my door is shut and I just start writing.
Wow. So you're while you're thinking and walking, you're not taking any notes. You're just
Oh,
it's all in your mind, but then you come home and write it all down.
that's it. Yeah.
Wow. For me, it's so fascinating to hear, just like the process, because for each person it's different, right? For each
Yeah.
author, it's different.
Mhm.
Um, what do you feel like is the most difficult part of the writing process for you?
So I think I would have to say it's the kind of the marriage, as they say, between the illustrator and the author.
Mm,
With picture books, they appear really easy to write because they're less than 800 words, and
right.
there's one can argue there's not that much to it, right? Well, anybody can write a picture book, but actually, it's one of the hardest things. Um, and I find the reason being that you have to marry the illustrations with the words. And often you have to work out in your text what text is redundant and the illustration is doing the job of speaking to your reader,
Mm,
um, versus what text is essential and needs to stay there, and because the illustration doesn't show it.
right, right.
So that editing journey I found the hardest, when it came to working with my illustrator as a self-published author, because
Right.
that usually would happen in a traditional publishing house, would happen with their editors. So if I
Right.
was to submit my manuscript, they would then find an illustrator that suits the series according to them, and then they would take over the entire process from there.
Right. Right.
However, I had this very strong idea of who I want Dev and Ollie to be and what I want them to look like. So I decided that I would like to self-publish, and that way I can work with the illustrator myself. And the first title, Kite Crazy, took almost a year because it was learning as I was going along. It was not just me learning, but it was my illustrator learning my ways as well. And you had to kind of find that point where your thoughts were matching and they were in sync.
Right.
Whereas the second and third book became a lot easier. The third book, again, because of it being the third book,
Yes.
was a walk in the park in comparison to Kite Crazy and Color Carnival.
Yes, because you were already familiar with working with him. He was familiar with your style and the character and the stories.
Yes. Yeah.
So is there another, so you've got 3 books. Is there, do you envision more in the series? More Dev
Yeah,
and Ollie?
absolutely. So the next one that I'm working on is going to be called Smooth Sailing. It's about a boat race, which is the highlight of a festival called Onam in a state called Kerala in India. And it's a southern state, very different culture, very different people. And the boat race is it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. It takes, I think, about 92 men on one boat. And
Whoa.
yeah, it's phenomenal. The entire concept and the boat race is absolutely phenomenal. And the amount of prep that goes into it during that festival. So I think the kids will absolutely love it and they'll really enjoy that title, that book. And after that, once I've done kind of 4 festivals in India, I feel like that's a good enough glimpse of India as such for our little readers. And then I intend to move on to other festivals. And the one that I've got lined up in my mind after Smooth Sailing is going to be based on a tomato festival in Spain called the Tomatina.
Oh my goodness, I haven't heard of either of these festivals, so I cannot wait.
So yeah, that title is probably going to be called Tons of Tomatoes.
Love it. So how did you choose Spain as the next adventure?
I think it's just something that comes very naturally when I start researching festivals. And that's actually one of the things I really enjoy about the series and about writing, that I love the research behind it, usually, which is like one of the most boring elements, right, of work.
Yeah.
And I learn so much myself when I'm researching these festivals. And Tomatina just is something that I came across. And I thought, what a brilliant festival. Like, why don't kids know about this? And ironically, children are not allowed in that festival. It's an adult-only festival because it can get pretty rough. So I thought, actually, well, let's just write a book about it.
So will it be Dev and Ollie that go and explore that festival?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. We look forward to that. And so do you think you will now, after Spain, you'll be taking adventures around the world with Dev and Ollie to other
Yeah,
countries?
that is the plan. So I do plan to cover a couple of Japanese festivals as well, since I grew up there and I have fond memories of those festivals. There's already one that I can think of in China that I'd like to write about. So yeah, absolutely. The plan is to keep going.
Well, maybe our readers will send you some ideas.
Oh, that would be amazing. Please do.
Yes. So what do you want to tell our little authors, or maybe even adults who may want to try writing a book themselves one day? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. So writing is something that, I find, unfortunately, people don't try enough, and it's not emphasized enough in schools. At least over here in the UK, what you hear constantly in schools is read, read, read.
Same here.
And there's big campaigns, right? Read, read, read. Yeah. And I really want that to change to read, read, write. Because I think it's such a beautiful skill to have, and it's so important, and it's so therapeutic to be able to pen your thoughts on paper.
Yes.
And I think writing is something that people get really scared about, and they seize up thinking, oh, well, I can't write and I can't do that and I don't know what to write. And I'll be very honest with you, I was the same way. I had this idea in my head about Dev and Ollie, but even after 2 writing courses, I just thought, well, I can't do it.
Mm.
I've got the characters, and I've got the festivals, but how do I create a story out of it?
Yeah.
And I learned in the writing course, the 4 Ps of writing, right? So you've got your plot. Sorry, start with people, the characters,
Okay.
and then place, and then you've got your plot. So a rough idea of what the story is going to be about, and then the purpose, so which is the story arc. So what is the purpose of you writing this book?
Okay.
And my own 5th P, which I like to add, which I think is extremely important as a message, is perseverance. And I think it's so, so important, because you can't, you cannot hear that enough from authors that I've been watching masterclasses, on. But they talk about writing, and they talk about the story arc and the plot and the characters and how to write a gripping story. But they don't tell you enough to keep going. They don't tell you enough. They may tell that to adult writers, where they say a published author is one who didn't quit. They kept going, right?
Interesting.
And
Yep.
whether it's I've just written another a novel, and I've just finished the first draft, and I'm not going to stop there. I have to keep refining it. And it's the perseverance that I feel needs to be conveyed to, whether it's to an adult writer or children, because children, I can imagine, they will seize up when they're writing, and they
Yes.
think, well, I can't do it. I don't know how to
Yes.
write. And I know the characters. My character sounds like this and looks like this, and then their mind will wander off somewhere else because
Yes.
they're children.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be that difficult. If you just pick up a pencil and write 3 words to begin with, then add another 3 words the next day, then add another 6 words the day
I like
after.
that.
Really, it's not that difficult if you persevere. And I really believe in that 5th P.
I love that. You're going to be teaching, I have a feeling you're going to be teaching writing courses. It's going to be your master class. Speaking about writing a novel, can you tell us a little bit about what are you doing there?
So this one is not for our little readers and little, aspiring writers. This is more for adults.
Yes.
And it's completely different to the Dev and Ollie series. It's a bit of a dark story, no pun intended, with the choice of word. It's about colorism, and it's about my experience and my journey through colorism from the age of 6. Being born South Asian, of this color, to very fair parents. And in the Indian culture, the South Asian community, there's this obsession about fairness, to the point where it becomes soul destroying for somebody who isn't. And I happen to have one of the worst experiences that you can imagine. So because a combination of, very fair parents and a darker child, and being the only dark child, because my brother is very fair,
okay,
meant that I was open to a lot of derogatory comments, because everybody just felt they're allowed to. So yeah, it's about my journey through it all from the age of 6 to even now. It's relentless. And so I've been working on this little project for the last few months, and it was all triggered, to be honest, by the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd's brutal death. And it really got me thinking. Now I know that, what that movement is about is something entirely different, and I appreciate that. And what that community has gone through is not anywhere comparable to what colorism is in India. But I'm being very honest, that's what inspired me to write, because I felt like I felt guilty. I felt like what I was going through is nothing in comparison to what they have gone through for centuries.
Yes.
And yet there was this guilt, but yet there was this connection.
Mhm.
And so I started writing, and now I've just finished the first draft of The Black Rose. And I've had such a phenomenal response just sharing the prologue on social media. And it's just given me such an immense boost, that I have to keep going, but no matter what.
I'm so glad, Shweta, because it sounds like a very important story to tell. I didn't realize there was colorism in India, and I don't think probably I'm going to venture out to say most of us here in America know that. So I'm glad that I'm really looking forward to reading your story and learning.
Thank you.
Thanks for being brave to put it out there because I know that can't be
Thank you. I
easy.
feel like it's a social responsibility now. I feel
Yeah,
like it's not even me writing, it's
yeah.
just something that has to be done.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful for you and your perseverance. And
Thank you.
as an adult, I love reading your picture books to my students. Um, but I'm really looking forward to reading The Black Rose for me. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Um, Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, can you tell us if there are other teachers out there watching or principals of schools that would like to have you come to do author visits, either in person or if they don't live in England,
Mm.
um, how they could still have an author visit with you, you know, across
Right. So
across the
I
ocean.
love engaging with little ones. And I think partly it's because my two are now 14 and 12. So I don't get to have, that bonding time with them
Right, right.
where I could grab one and put them on my lap and read them a little story. So yeah, I just absolutely love engaging with young kids and their inquisitive minds and their questions. And, um, school visits for that reason are one of my favorite things. And I have done, fortunately, quite a lot here in the UK, World Book Day being one of the most kind of popular days for school visits. But now that we have the gift of Zoom,
Yes.
um, thankfully, I've been able to do the same with children around the world.
Oh, yay.
I've had book readings for Kite Crazy. When we had the first lockdown, parents were really struggling to keep their children engaged. And obviously, everybody hadn't quite got the multitasking between
Yes.
working from home and homeschooling.
Yes.
Um, it was tough. And, I did my bit offering free Zoom sessions with children. And it was absolutely wonderful. Now, I did have to uh, change a few things and adjust because it's on Zoom as opposed to
Yes.
a live session, which is a lot more interactive with
Right.
children in when you're present there in the classroom. But I think I've actually I've gotten to kind of understand how it works now with Zoom. So I do a lot with um, uh, Ollie, for example, over there.
Oh, hi, Ellie.
And I and I start. I'll grab this little guy because what I do is I start my session.
Oh my gosh.
This is Ollie. So I start my session by asking children, like, I've lost Ollie, and if I don't have him with me, I get really nervous and I can't speak right, and my words just come out all wrong. So can you help me find him? And then I just move my finger around and I say, can you help me? Where is he? Where is he? And that breaks the ice and they really enjoy the session. And I now know how to keep it interactive with kids on Zoom. So yeah,
That's so great.
absolutely. So would be delighted to do school sessions with sorry, to do Zoom sessions with schools anywhere in the world.
Great. Oh, that's so wonderful. And thank you for sharing those wonderful pictures with us of you engaged in those visits with kids. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Um, can't think of anything.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll have like 1,000 thoughts afterwards, but right now you put me on the spot here. um, no, well, all I would like to say, kids, is I know that reading can be scary because I've been through it myself and I hated reading. Shh, don't tell anyone else. I hated it when I was a little girl. I grew up in India, so when I moved to Japan, my accent was different. I didn't know how to read English that well. So when I had these books, I found it very, very daunting when I was given assignments, and I started off with extra lessons with my teacher, and I would come up with all sorts of excuses not to read. And I'm a late bloomer. It wasn't easy for me. I promise you that. I was a late bloomer, and it doesn't matter. What matters is if you start to just give it some time, and don't be impatient with yourself, and don't expect too much from yourself. Open up a book just for pleasure. You don't even have to read it. Just look at the pictures and start engaging with the characters and with the story. And before you know it, you'll be completely immersed into the book, and you will start enjoying reading. So, like I said, late bloomers, doesn't matter, right?
And the Dev and Ollie series is the perfect book series to start with.
Thank you.
Shweta, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you for spending time with us, taking us on your journey. And we are just going to look forward to reading all of your future books.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isa. The pleasure is all mine.
Thank you.
Thank you to all your viewers and readers. Please, drop me a line, devandollie.com. The website is devandollie.com, and share your reading experiences with me, images, anything. I absolutely love seeing pictures of kids reading the books, or any books, in fact. It doesn't have to be Dev and Ollie, and just interacting, engagement. I just love that. It makes my day. Thank you.
Great. And they can also find you at on Instagram at Dev and Ollie.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Remember to like and subscribe to support our channel.